Over the last 10 years, we've damaged a few customers' vehicles. So today I'm gonna give you 4 examples of what we did, how we came up with a solution, and some tips to you on what you should do if you run into a situation where you damage a customer's vehicle. Example number 1 is we were doing a wash and wax and an interior cleaning on an Audi Q4, I believe. Now this was a recently purchased vehicle for the customer, and the front end, a lot of the vehicle had quite a few hiccups around the vehicle, right? I mean, there's just heavy scratches across the vehicle. Like there was some pieces missing on the exterior. The wheels were all, had a bunch of curb rash. The front end had a bunch of bug splatter. I mean, it was like littered with very dry bug splatter. So on this one, when we were using the turbo nozzle on the wheels and tires, and once we started rinsing down the vehicle, we were like, hey, since there's so much bug splatter on the front end, let's use a turbo nozzle. Maybe it'll knock some down. So we started rinsing down the front bumper, like the front end, and there was already some pieces of the front bumper missing paint, right? Like there was already just chunks missing. Now they weren't that big, but they were like small little chunks of paint missing throughout the front bumper. So when we use the turbo nozzle on the pressure washer, and we started to rinse down the areas near where that chunk of paint was missing, like we made that little hole like this big of paint. We basically, we chipped off that much paint. So with that one, we're like, oh dang, that's not good. So what we did there was, even if the customer was gonna be upset, right? We would have just gave them the service for free, right? So we didn't notify the customer until we were done, just because either way, upset or not, gonna pay us or not, depending on how he reacts, we're still gonna give him the service for free, if it came to that. So we did the whole service, and then when the customer came out, we took him straight to the front bumper, and we were like, hey, we explained the whole thing that just happened, and he basically was like, oh yeah, don't worry about it, I'm gonna get it repainted. And that was literally that. There was no negativity, there was no backlash, there was no I'm angry, there was no nothing. And again, the vehicle itself, it was just recently purchased. It wasn't in great condition, right? The interior also had quite a few things that was like, oh, okay, you could tell it was used. And I think that's why there was no, kind of problem. Now, again, a big part of these next examples that I'm gonna give you is it's highly dependent on the kind of person that you attract into your business, right? Like when I used to work at Discount Tire, there would be people there that would kind of say, hey, you guys scratched my wheel. Hey guys, you dented my vehicle. Hey guys, you broke my window. And a lot of times it would be because they would want Discount Tire to pay for that repair, even though we didn't do it, right? So the type of customers that you attract into your business will heavily dictate the kind of response that you get if something were to go wrong. And that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be like, oh my God, you dropped the polisher on my hood and now it's all scratched up. If you're dealing with customers that simply just for any little inconvenience, they want to start complaining and asking the world from you from this little inconvenience, that's never ideal. So it really factors in to the kind of customers you attract into your business. The second example is when we broke off a piece of the seat covering holder thing on his BMW coupe. The seat belt kind of attached to the seat. And on this one, it was already cracked. And when we were trying to open up the leather seats, I opened up as far as pushing it forward or moving it around so we can access the rear. It had completely broken off. Now, again, same thing that we did. We finished off the service before notifying the customer, because again, if they're upset with it or whatever, they're gonna get the service for free. So when the customer comes out, I think on this one we did a mini interior detail, an engine cleaning, and I think a premium wash. This was 2 years ago now. And when the customer came out, we again notified them about the seat. Also because it was very obvious, it's right there, but we notified them about what had happened. And he said, oh, don't worry about that. I have the spare parts in the rear. I'm gonna replace it right now. Again, is it the luck, are we just lucking out every single time and the customer just, doesn't care, or that they already knew that was a problem? Because for us, we literally just lightly touched it. We grabbed it and then it fell off. So it's not like we we're being just careless and like we brush something against it or hit it against something. Like we literally just grabbed it and it fell off. So like in that regard, it's like the customer already knew it was broken. He didn't say anything about like, hey, it's already broken, but like you could tell it was already broken. I barely touched it and it fell off. So there again, no problem. He did ask us if we can replace it, if we had the capabilities to do that. And we said no, just because like, even if we could, we're not there to be mechanics. We're not, as simple as it may be, we're not there to be mechanics. We don't want to, think we could do something easily and then we break one little tab or do something where it's like, oh dang, you know what? Now it's turned into a bigger problem because we thought it was that simple to do. So we didn't do that just because again, like we don't want to put ourselves in a hole that we don't want to be in. But again, on this one, we told him outright. He said, oh, don't worry about that. I have the spare part in the trunk. He paid us the normal rates and we were on about our day. The third example is recently when we were working on a Toyota Corolla interior and I put my hand on the dashboard and I had to like kind of prop myself up a little bit. So I put my weight on my hand on the dashboard and it cracked the vent. So again, it's gonna follow the same formula. We didn't notify the customer immediately. We went through the full detail, we got it done. And the reason why we did that one is because as soon as it happened, I already knew what we were gonna do. We're gonna do the detail, we're gonna get paid, and then we're gonna tell the customer, hey, we cracked your vent center console thing. Don't worry about it. We're gonna order an extra part for you. If you can drive by our shop, because they live pretty close by as well. So say, hey, whenever we get the part, sometime next week, just come by our shop and we'll have the mechanic install it for you. No charge, it'll be super easy to handle. And that's like, we just sent one message saying, because the customer had left, they paid and they had left the job site at their home location. So we basically just text them, hey, it's all done, whatever. By the way, we cracked the center console, we ordered a new one, and just come by our shop and the mechanic will replace it, no charge. Sorry for the inconvenience. And that was it. And the customer, he was like, okay, thank you. Like that was literally it. There was no like, hey, oh, you broke, you're supposed to give me a discount. Like, no, none of that. As soon as we saw what happened, we already knew the game plan. We're gonna take ownership of it. We're gonna pay for it. We're gonna, we're gonna take care of it. And that's essentially like just what you have to do, right? When you assuming you're still not being completely careless and you're not like running a polisher without a pad on the entire side of the vehicle or like dropping the polisher on the windshield and cracking, I don't know, right? Like these are very negligible things for the most part. It's like you take ownership of what happened, you explain the situation and you offer a course to a solution, right? Like you don't just be like, oh, so what's happening? No, like a big part of of handling the situation and mitigating the situation is the way you respond to it and the way you take ownership of it and how you propose the solutions moving forward to how we can remedy this for the customer, right? So like if I didn't tell the customer anything and I was like, and we got paid and he gets there later that day and he said, hey guys, you broke my vent. And I was like, did we? I don't think we did. It was already like that, right? That's gonna immediately just cause frustration. It's gonna have some kind of, there's conflict to be had. They're gonna leave a bad review. They're gonna just, we're gonna feel bad because we would do that to them. So you take ownership and it's like, what is the solution to this, right? Is it a $10 thing? Is it a $45 thing? Is it a $100 thing, right? Like, what is it? And just what's the best course of action to remedy the situation? Assuming like you actually broke it, right? Like, all these that I'm talking about, like we actually did this thing, like that was like, especially with this Corolla, that's what we did on this vehicle. So take ownership of it, come up with solutions. Not that every solution is gonna work, but hey, like you're the one in charge. Don't just be like, oh, well, I don't know really, man, what happened? No, like take ownership, offer solutions, and see what's the best path forward. And the fourth example happened about 3-4 years ago now on the Honda Element when I was doing the interior, where it was, I was using a carpet brush to clean a specific seat. And as soon as I did a few strokes with the brush, you could tell that the fibers on the cloth seat like frayed, like they just like got really ugly. And I was like, oh, dang it, that sucks. And it was like very obvious, like you couldn't hide away from it. Now, granted, like it was an older style vehicle, right? But nonetheless, like I did a few strokes with my brush and like it just frayed up. So again, same thing. I went through the whole service or whatever I had to do. And then when it was time to check out the customer, as far as accept payment, I was like, hey man, like look what happened to the seat, right? Just very, very forthcoming, like, hey look, I did this is what I did, and this is the results. And then I offered my, my solution of like, hey, like I could like, kind of cut them down a bit to kind of level it out. And the customer was a bit disappointed, but even he was like, hey man, like, sorry if I got a little angry. It's an older style vehicle, and you did what you could, so I really appreciate that. And that was literally it. Like, he was a little upset because like his, the fibers were a bit frayed, and it just looked uglier than before that I got there. But there was no like, super like retaliation. Like, he didn't ask for the free, he didn't ask for a discount. He's like, no man, I understand. Like, this is an older style vehicle as well. So, thanks for doing a great job. Like, he was still very like appreciative and like understood. But again, like, that's what happens. Like, you're not gonna be able to control every single situation. And I didn't do anything crazy. The seats didn't look damaged. Like, I didn't know that like a few strokes with the brush would have like done that to the fibers. And it's like, I don't know, that's just what happened, right? So again, you talk to the customer, explain what happened, offer a solution, and from there they might like it, they might not like it, kind of, see what is fair for each one. But overall, I can't say that we've ever gone through a situation where like the customer was like absolutely upset and like, oh my God, like you guys ruined my vehicle, and like you guys got to repaint this whole thing or whatever. Like, we've never come, whether it was myself, like on my own over the last 10 years, or when it's been with Lex and I, or with our team, like we've never had to that degree where a customer like retaliated on us, or not retaliated, but like was very disappointed and frustrated with us like damaging in some way their vehicle. Because again, like if you're at that point where like, oh, like if you're saying like, well, man, Oscar, those are simple ones, man. The way I damaged the vehicle was when it's like, well, I don't know, like maybe we're just, a bit more careful, right? Like, I guess it'd be kind of bad if you had these like large stories of like, yeah, I drove my van into this customer's vehicle. Like, I don't know, like this is to the extent that we've done. There's probably a few other ones that I missed, but it's like, they all follow the same general theme of like, we broke this little thing, we offered a solution, we paid for it, we sent it to them, and like we fixed it. Like, I don't know, like that's as basic and straightforward as it is. One thing I do recommend is like, don't lie about it, right? Don't try to like work your way around it, especially if you're just getting started and you're like, oh no, like I barely have the money, no, I'm gonna deny this. Like, it's easier mentally, it's easier to keep that relationship. Like the customer appreciates it if you just take ownership. Like, just own up to it and say like, hey, this is what I did, I'm sorry, here's the solution. Now again, a big part of this is that like you are being precautious of what you're doing, right? I'm hoping that this is like a small little thing that you did here, or like something that's like very negligible. Again, if you're coming to me like saying, oh, hey man, like, I burned the customer's paint because this is the first time I was doing paint correction on his classic vehicle, what I do is like, well, why be in that situation in the first place? Like, put yourself up for success, but don't just, don't lie. Because I've had some personal horror stories from other detailers on what they've done to try to cover up their tracks, to kind of, not let the customer know that they damaged their vehicle, whether it was like a newly reupholstered interior, or it was like a freshly new paint job on like this like classic Camaro, and they're just trying to cover up their tracks because like obviously they don't want to have that liability. That's not what we're gonna do. That's not like, again, but it's like, don't put yourself in that situation in the first place for that to happen, right? Like, that's why when we're backing out vehicles or pulling vehicles in, there's a spotter just making sure they're not gonna hit anything or hit the signs. When we're reversing out of the shop or into the shop, we're gonna honk the horn to let everyone know there's a car coming in or out. Like, there's things that we put in place so that way that doesn't happen, or at least we mitigate the chance of that happening, right? So like, be proactive with what you're doing. That's kind of the thesis here. Just be proactive in how you handle things. And I know some of you are gonna play the card of like, Oscar, that's not real damage. This is real damage. Look, that's what we have. There's other things that you can talk about insurance, about SOPs, about like training with your employees and doing things. This is just like a really high level overview of kind of some of the situations we've been in. If you want to know more, let me know what specifically you'd like to know in the comment section. Other than that, I'll talk to you on the next one.